had the pleasure of teaching. It's been an honor to have the opportunity to grow beside them these past 4 years. There are so many great things to say about this class that I could go on until after dark, but I was told that would not be acceptable. Instead, I'd like to open up with an old parable that I think illustrates the innate wisdom of this group. Long ago, in a secluded village, there lived a young boy. As that young boy grew into a young man, he could often be seen gazing off toward the horizon as though in a trance. Always inside the boy there was a question, an emptiness, a longing for purpose. He read all of the holy books, and quite a few unholy books as well. He prayed dutifully with his family at all the prescribed hours, but still he felt meaningless and lost. Eventually, he looked for answers in women and strange music, and the drink that made the old man fall down. But one day he could hide his sadness from himself no longer, and desperate, he went to the old man who lived at the edge of the village to ask his advice. Some people said the old man was crazy, but some said he was very wise. When he'd finally got up the courage to visit the old man, he found him in a simply furnished little shack. "Old man," said the young man, "some say that you are very wise, that you possess secrets no one in the village can understand. Is it true?" "Perhaps," said the old man in a weak little voice. "Then tell me, who am I? For I must be more than just a face in a mirror." "Go to the western edge of the village, where the road crosses over the river into the forest. There you will find your answer." So the young man went to the place that the old man had prescribed. And when he arrived, he found only a little clearing and a pile of bricks. So the young man returned to the old man's hut and said, "I did as you told me, but all I found was a pile of bricks." "Then go to the eastern edge of the village. Just beyond the walls, there's a field of grain. There you will find your answer." So the young man traveled beyond the walls of the village and found the field of grain, and in it an old woman, bent over by years, cultivating. The young man approached and asked, "Old woman, I am lost in this world and am filled with emptiness. Who am I?" The old woman looked up at him and laughed, and went back to her cultivating. Frustrated, the young man returned to the old man's hut. "I did as you said, but received only insulting laughter. What is the meaning of this?" "Go to the north end of the village," said the old man quietly. "There's a house there whose windows are all closed. Enter the house, and you will find your answer." So the young man did as he was told, and came to the house, and without knocking, entered. The house was dark, and in the corner of its single room, on a bed of straw, lay a sick child. Startled, but determined, the young man asked the child, "Child, the old man sent me here to find out who I am. Do you know the answer?" But the child was too sick to speak, and could only moan and writhe in his fever. Frustrated, the young man stormed out of the house and hurried back to the old man in anger. "Old man, perhaps what some say is true, that you are only a madman. I've come to you for answers, and you've sent me all over the village for nothing." The old man ignored the young man's anger. "Go to the south of the village. There you will find a house with a red door. Behind this door, you will find your answer." Though by this time he had lost faith, he did as he was told, and arrived at the house. Within he could hear the cries of a woman and the angry shouts of a man, punctuated by the sounds of fists landing blows on flesh. Infuriated, he stormed back to the old man's hut. This time, determined to give the old man a dressing down. He exploded into the house and shouted, "You cruel old man! I have come to you for wisdom, and you have mocked me. You're nothing but a fool." Calmly the old man replied, "On the table behind you, near the door, there's a box. In the box there is something that will show you who you are." The young man laughed in anger, but went over to the table and found the box anyway. He opened it and pulled out a mirror. The mirror must have contained some magic, for he gazed into it, but he could not see his reflection. He threw it down on the table in a rage, and it shattered into pieces. "Curse you, old man! You're crazy, just as they had warned me." "Silence!" shouted the old man. "You blind and selfish boy, you are nothing but a name that falls from the mouth and is blown away in the wind. I have already given you 4 mirrors with which to see yourself, and you have seen nothing. Why should you expect to see anything in the 5th? If you do not shape the world, then you too must have no shape. Go to the west and build a temple with the bricks to glorify heaven. Go to the east and harvest the grain to feed your village. Go to the north and heal the child. Go to the south and protect the woman. For if you do nothing, then you are nothing. The world is your mirror." Needless to say, the young man was delivered from his existential crisis. A crisis, the crux of which is so prevalent in our own time. Despite what we've been led to believe by a corporate culture of advertising and consumption, and the diabolical mutation of 500 years of humanism, happiness is not our birthright. In fact, it seems the less we need to work for our smartphones and our fine cuisine and our flush toilets, the harder we need to work for our happiness. Rates of depression are 50% higher in the United States than they are in the underdeveloped countries of Africa. Let me put that another way. People living in countries where the next meal is not secure, where political strife takes the shape of a gun instead of a TV commercial, where babies die with regularity, these people are less sad than we are. Our rate of per capita internet access is higher than the per capita rate of access to a toilet in Ethiopia. So what are we so sad about? Perhaps it's the fact that the average American household has more cars than it has children. Or perhaps it's the fact that we are more likely to be obese than to have a college degree. Perhaps it is because, as a nation, we spent more on credit card penalties than we did to support renewable energy development last year. In short, we appear to have reached a sort of material utopia, where the only commandment seems to be enjoy. Yet we continue to find this state of affairs terrifyingly unsatisfying. Who can deliver us from this crisis of opulence? Well, unfortunately, there are far fewer old wise men at the edge of the village to tell us the meaning of life. In other words, Americans are less and less likely to be guided by a comprehensive and therefore reassuring worldview, whether it be religious, political, or communal. Rates of non-belief in God are 14 times higher than they were in 1951. We're less likely to identify with a political party. Identification as a political independent is 3 times what it was in 1945. And very often, we live among strangers who could not tell us our name, much less the meaning of life. Only 30% of adults live in the town in which they were born, and 38% of adults do not consider the town in which they live to be home. These graduates inherit a world that is both connected and cut into a million pieces by things like Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. They can learn a lot of things from the internet, and they probably already have. But they can't learn why they've been put on this earth. It seems there's no one that can help them now, and perhaps there never was. They're welcome to Google it, but in the end, they must decide what is right and what is wrong. They must decipher what is good and what is bad. They must answer the question, what's the point? But here we are. back to you again. And this is how the ego can work like a black hole, creating a spiral of vacuous, self-centered darkness, when it should be acting like a sun, warming those objects lucky enough to fall into its orbit. Though you are responsible for your happiness does not lie within you. Happiness will not come to you in some cosmic New Age explosion while you are getting to know your inner self, which I believe is code for eating too much ice cream. It will come instead in tiny, immeasurable increments that plot the course of a meaningful life. Voting for a state senator, changing a baby's diaper, serving another bowl of soup, planting a seed of righteousness or beauty or truth, though you may not ever taste its fruit. This class seems to already know that. They know that they must disengage from the solipsistic hamster wheel of the mind, that they must crash through the barrier between the subject and the object, that they must, in the words of Karl Marx, be a member of that class of human that no longer reproduces himself merely intellectually, but actively and in a real sense, and sees his own reflection in a world which he has constructed. That is the great wisdom of this class of young people. They already seem to intuit that you are what you do, that if you do nothing, you are nothing. They've helped children in Guatemala, taught English in Mexico, left their footprints in Japan and Spain and France and Germany. They have tilled the earth and written songs. They have helped build homes, and they have helped build community. In short, they have looked into the world and begun to see themselves. And that is my wish for them, that when they look into the mirror tomorrow and for the rest of their lives, that they don't see their own reflection, but the reflection of the millions of faces that cry out in need, the reflection of a million works of art yet uncreated, the reflection of those others they were meant to serve and inspire. My hope for them is that the world will be their mirror, and that it will shine back to them an image that is defined by joy and peace and accomplishment. So, welcome to all of you on this very special day, the day that the class of 2013 is introduced to the world that they will shape. And to deliver the commencement speech for this esteemed group of young people, we have one of the very important early influences in many of their lives, a woman who taught them to see themselves